All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome inside Executive Decisions. It's your boy Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive. We have 8 quarterbacks this year that will be making their first ever Week 1 starts in the NFL. That is right, 8 quarterbacks this year making their first ever Week 1 starts in the NFL. You got some rookies mixed in with some guys who are some second-year players. Want to get in there and discuss and break those guys down, let you know what I think they're to expect from them for the upcoming season. But before we get into that, do got to take care of a couple things. Want to give a special shout out to everybody that's already hit that subscribe button. Definitely appreciate your support. And if you have not done that yet, please do so. Also, fantasy football people, in the description section of this video right here, you'll find ways to play in some FFWC Fantasy Football World Championship leagues. You can go down there and find your own price point. I'll be setting up a couple of subscriber leagues at the starter price point and at the expert price point if there is enough interest. Now, obviously, everybody is tight with dollars nowadays, but hitting that subscribe button will not cost you one penny. All right, so let's get ready to hop into it and get it rocking and rolling. And let's start with the Houston Texans, who last season, their Week 1 starter was Davis Mills. Listen, I don't think Davis Mills was that bad of a quarterback. But they went out there this year and they drafted Ohio State quarterback C.J. Stroud. He comes in. He's already, he has not been named the starter yet, but more than likely Stroud will be the starter for the Texans this season. His initial preseason performance was not well, throwing interceptions, footwork not good, the things you typically see from a young quarterback. But one thing I will say is this: the win total coming into the season is 6.5. That seems a bit high for the Houston Texans. Now, they don't play in the greatest division, and I do think D'Amico Ryans is the head coach that will end up eventually turning this situation around. But that's going to be an under bet for me this year. And listen, I think you source the best of Stroud in the game versus Georgia. You saw what he can really be when he is comfortable. It's going to take a little time for him to develop into that. I think, like a lot of young quarterbacks, particularly rookies, he'll have some ups and downs in his rookie season. But with that being said, I will not pass judgment on him. I still think he's going to have a fine NFL career, hopefully for the Houston Texans. In Green Bay, obviously last season, and for the last however many seasons, almost 2 decades, their Week 1 starter was the great Aaron Rodgers. But this year, their Week 1 starter will be Jordan Love. Jordan Love is a guy who sat and watched Rodgers for a couple years right now. Now, I think Love is going to be the real deal. I think Love is going to come in. I think it's going to be a seamless transition. And I think he's going to be able to play and play well right from Week 1. Now, all the raves coming out of Packer camps is about how good Jordan Love has looked. He was sharp in the game he played in last season. He was sharp in the preseason game. And the Bengals were actually complimentary, very complimentary of Jordan Love when they had their joint practices. So I think Love is going to be solid. I like the Packers to win the NFC North. I like the Packers to go over their 7.5 win total. And I think Jordan Love is going to be an asset for the Green Bay Packers this season. I'm looking forward to seeing him play. Up next, Carolina Panthers. They had the first pick in the draft, and they took Alabama quarterback, former Heisman Trophy winner Bryce Young. Bryce Young is the Carolina Panthers Week 1 starter. Last year, it was Baker Mayfield. So they've already done good as far as getting Young on the team because Mayfield is a dog. Listen, I'm a big Bryce Young supporter. I like Bryce Young a lot. I think Bryce Young is the best quarterback in this draft. I think he's going to have a fantastic career. Now, what I do worry about with Bryce Young is not really his size, but if Frank Reich don't scheme the offense right to where you got 300-pound linemen falling on the rookie quarterback in the preseason games, then it's not going to happen. Now, I know Carolina's O-line played well last year. They're better than what they've been so far. I think it's Wright's blocking schemes. And if the young quarterback's in trouble early and he's got the Jets falling on him and sacking him every time he drops back, how about switch something up? Don't get him hurt. This is a franchise quarterback, Frank Reich. I've rode for you. I've stood behind you. Do the same thing and don't let my boy Bryce Young take a beating out there. Panthers win total 7.5. I'm going to take the over. I think they compete for the division. I think Bryce Young is going to have a solid season. I would sprinkle on him to be the offensive rookie of the year. And I think that happens because the team is going to be successful. But Bryce, you need your head coach, Frank Reich, to do the correct thing. So right now, I'm still optimistic on Bryce Young, but I'm very worried. Well, not very worried, but I'm starting to see some things with Frank Reich that we've seen in the past that may not be beneficial. Up next is Indianapolis Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson. Last year, the Colts starting quarterback was week 1 starter was Matt Ryan. That didn't go well. Then the Jeff Saturday thing happened. It was just a disaster for the Indianapolis Colts last year. But this year they go out, they draft Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson. Now, a lot of people think that he is a raw talent, and they're all correct in that. But listen, he's got the skills, he's got the athleticism, and I think he has the head coach in Shane Steichen who's going to scheme it right. I think he's going to be an asset for this team. The win total is sitting at 6.5. I think Indianapolis is a 6 or 7 win team. The division is weak. They could get lucky and pull off some more wins. But I think Richardson has a solid season. And what I like about what they did was, they not only named him the starter, they said he will be the starter for the season. So that gives the young man a chance to be comfortable, not have to worry and look over his back. And this way he can play with a full complement and not worry about having to lose his job and stress through things like that. So I think the win total is not one that I would bet, but if I was to go after it, it would be the over. But I think Anthony Richardson is going to do a solid job this year in Indianapolis. I think he's going to be a decent fantasy asset as well. I mean, listen, at 6'4", 235, Cam Newton size, but he's more physical and likes to bang, not a finesse player like Cam was. I think Richardson is going to do just fine, particularly in this offense. Brock Purdy was a guy we got to know last year when he came in for the San Francisco 49ers and made that run all the way to the NFC Championship game when he got hurt with that UCL injury. Now, Purdy is ramping up in Niner camp every week. Seems like he's getting better and better and better. They've already said that he would be the starter, mainly because Sam Darnold and Trey Lance suck. But the bottom line of the matter is this. I worry that people may have gotten the book on Brock Purdy. When the quarterback goes into his second season, particularly after playing well in his first season, it can be difficult to duplicate that success, i.e. Mac Jones, even though Mac Jones didn't have an offensive coordinator last season. But the 10.5 wins for the Niners is too big for me. I'll take the under on that one right there. So I like Brock Purdy. I think he's solid, but I just worry that there could be start to get a book on him. Mind you, this was the guy that was drafted with the last pick of the draft. And I know how Shanahan offense is very quarterback friendly. And he's the guy that can scheme it up for the quarterbacks and did a good job last year with Brock Purdy. But really, this team only wins with Jimmy G. So we're going to see what it looks like this year. I think Purdy is a good young quarterback. I think he'll be ready to roll. That's what all signs point to. But I could worry about there being some regression this season. In Washington, last year and every year, they have a new week 1 starter. But Daniel Snyder is gone. They're trying to get some stability to the program now. Last year, the week 1 starter was Carson Wentz, who's an op. But this year, it's Sam Howell, former University of North Carolina quarterback, Heisman Trophy candidate coming into his final season at UNC. But he had a couple bad games, fell out of favor, dropped in the draft, and the Commanders picked him up last season. And he played in that one game versus Dallas late in the year. He looked good in that game. Now, that game was mainly an exhibition, even though Commander fans tweeted that was a real live game. He also looked well in some spot time he had in the preseason this year. He's been playing well in joint practices. He doesn't have much football on the field in the NFL behind him, despite being a second-year player. But I think he does well this year. I think Eric Bieniemy and that crew will get him in check. Now, the offensive line, like with any situation, is going to be something you got to keep an eye on. Washington has a couple moving pieces. But they can get that line right. I like the talent on the outside of McLaurin and Dotson. So I think Sam Howell will be successful. He's going to have his ups and downs, but I'll take the over 6.5 on the win total for the Commanders, and I think Sam Howell plays a role. Let's go down to Atlanta, where last year the week 1 starter was Marcus Mariota. He's out the picture now. Job for this year belongs to Desmond Ridder. Falcons come in. Listen, the odds makers are aggressive. They got the total set at 8.5, but then again, they do play in a weak division, so they could get a chance to rack up some early wins. And Ridder was not great, but he wasn't terrible last year. He won his final 2 games, threw a couple touchdown passes, and now he's getting offense that's more catered to what he can do and some of his strengths. He hasn't been terrible in the preseason or, in the spot work that he's had. Now, 8.5 wins is a bit much, but I think Ridder has a chance to be successful. But I also can think if the Falcons do fail and have a chance to get a top draft pick, I can see them going into tank mode and going to get a Drizzy Drake May or a Caleb Williams if the team is that bad. Or maybe they would end up having to trade for Kyler Murray because he's going to be out in Arizona. So I think with Ridder, there's yet a lot to still be determined, but I am a fan of the opportunity that Ridder is going to get with the offense catered to his skill set. And I think Art Smith would do a good job doing that. And finally, last season, legacy franchise, the Pittsburgh Steelers week 1 starter was Mitchell Trubisky. You knew that wasn't going to go well, so they went to the rookie at some point, and it was Kenny Pickett. And I think Kenny Pickett is going to do real well this year, to be 100% honest with y'all. As a matter of fact, the win total has steamed up to 9.5. So sharp money is getting behind the Pittsburgh Steelers this year. I think Pickett's going to be the real deal. You got a situation in Pittsburgh. The standard is the standard. You know they're going to be tough. You know they're going to be well coached. He's not going to be put in bad positions. It's a great organization to be a young quarterback in, following up a legend in Ben Roethlisberger. I like Kenny Pickett. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers a lot. I think Pittsburgh's a playoff team, and I think Pickett has a fantastic season. I'll take over on the 9.5 wins. Listen, Pickett won 6 of his 7 final games last year. They're going to say, oh, well, that's the defense. No, that's always going to be on the quarterback when you get some wins as well, because the quarterback is going to have to make some plays. So I like the Pittsburgh Steelers and Kenny Pickett to have a bounce-back season this year. So I think Pickett is going to be a guy that is going to not go into the upper echelon of quarterbacks, but he'll be right outside that top 10 to 15, 12 to 15 when you talk about him next season as opposed to this year. So I am in on Kenny Pickett. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with me. Once again, please remember to hit that subscribe button. And Fantasy Football Aficionados got some links down there. Even got the free mock draft link. You know what I'm saying? Where you can win something in the mock draft madness, starter leagues, expert leagues, and the baller leagues for the cats that want to go out and hang out in Las Vegas and do it at Circa Swim. But until next time, Fantasy Executive is out. Don't forget to rate and review, leave a comment, and if you have not subscribed, be like the cool kids and hit that red button. Your boy, the Fantasy Exec, is out.